On sunny Southampton's Voice FM, that's Ella Langley and Choose in Texas. If you have just joined us, a very good morning to you. My name's Xan and this is Your Green Breakfast. And if you were listening yesterday, first of all, thank you very much. But of course, you will have heard Anna Copper from Stacks & Co. Talking about this new campaign launched by Go Southampton to support small independent hospitality traders. Anna explained while revenue may be up thanks to loyal customers, overheads, utilities, supplies, insurance, business rates and staffing costs, including minimum wage, national insurance and pension contributions, have risen faster than prices can realistically increase, leaving businesses with extremely tight margins and little reward for sustained hard work. Here to continue the story is someone who is incredibly passionate about Southampton and Southampton's business community. It's Spencer Bowman, who is founder and MD of Mettricks Ascapart. Spencer, a very good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Xan. Thank you for having me. I haven't had a coffee yet.
No?
But I'm warming up to the morning, yeah.
No, that's unbelievable. What time do you normally have a coffee then?
I'll normally have one at just before 7 o'clock, but I had a little bit of a sleep in this morning before coming to see you.
Well, you after this will definitely deserve one, because we're going to try and get as much out of you as possible. And as far as it goes for Mettricks, you've got 3 units in Southampton, is that correct?
We've got four coffee shops in Southampton, yeah.
Where's the fourth?
So we've got one in Woolston,
yes,
one on Portswood Road, which is also where we roast our coffee. So that's where our Ascapart roastery is based. One on Guildhall Square.
Yes.
And one in West Quay.
Ah, that's the one I was missing.
Yeah.
Yes, the one in West Quay,
Yeah.
of course. But the fact that you roast your coffee in Portswood, that's fantastic. That's very local.
It's very local. It's a beautiful space. You can sit in the coffee shop and watch Wilson, our head roaster, roast away. It sounds incredible. It smells amazing. Yeah, it's the old Lloyds Bank building opposite Sainsbury's on the corner there. So, yeah.
Very good. And as far as coffee goes, though, because with this environmental program, we had a story last week about the coffee belt being under threat through climate change, but also the fact that we drink 2 billion cups of coffee a day on the planet, but coffee itself, prices going up. Is that part of this whole thing? Is that a frustration for you?
I wouldn't say it's a frustration, actually. I think there are some of the cost prices or cost increases that we're seeing that I would, in principle support. So I think paying coffee farmers a fair price for their coffee actually makes our industry more sustainable. And so I think that's actually a good price rise in our supply chain, because it actually it supports communities in origin countries which often are around the equator. Lots of them in Africa are some of the poorest countries in the world. So I don't have a problem at all with seeing some more money go to some of the poorest people who are actually doing an incredible job growing some amazing coffee. So that's one cost pressure that on its own, I almost feel quite good about. And I'd say the same around some of the minimum wage increases, actually. I want my team to take home a sustainable living wage, That's really important to me. But I think the important thing is it's got to be sustainable. And I think the challenge that we've got, and I think what Anna will have spoken to you about yesterday, is the perfect storm of increasing costs right across our base. And some of them just now feel punitive and maybe have been made, for example, national insurance contributions and business rates increases without the full understanding of what the impact that those tax increases on our sector will have. And speaking to other hospitality operators in Southampton over the last couple of months, I'm far from alone. In fact, it's almost universal. And when we got together for the first time as an industry locally a couple of weeks ago, there were a couple of tears in the room where independent operators kind of cracked a little bit, showing both the relief of being in a room with other people that were going through similar pressures, i.e. they weren't alone in having to deal with them, but also some real kind of frustration and verging on hopelessness that if there isn't some kind of relief somewhere in the cost base, we're going to struggle to survive as an industry. And certainly the vibrancy with which hospitality at its best can contribute to, the community spaces that people meet for a coffee or a beer. The pubs campaign was a very kind of large scale one, but actually at the heart of why hospitality is valuable is because we provide the out of home meeting spaces for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee with your loved ones, or a first date, or to study. We have a lot of students that come into Mettricks, and without the spaces we provide, where will people go and do those things? So I think we're not asking for kind of subsidy. We're not even asking for a lot of sympathy. I think we're just wanting a really fair crack at being able to provide great spaces, great hospitality, but in a way that is financially sustainable.
Because you seem to be suggesting and this is what I'm picking up, that even if the whole of Southampton said, right, we're going to go out and fill the clubs and restaurants and cafes, it would still be not enough because the margins are just too tight.
Do you know what? It's really tricky. So we've been going for 13 years now, nearly 13 years, and so I've seen how the dynamics on these things have changed over that period of time. Had we put our prices of a latte up in line with the cost pressures that we've experienced, and to put those into perspective, our electricity prices have more than doubled in that amount of time, and at one point they were 3.5 times higher. The cost of coffee has doubled. Now I support that because of what I said earlier, but it's still a cost price increase. Minimum wage has almost doubled in that period of time, but the cost that I'm charging for coffee hasn't doubled. If we'd passed on the full cost to our customers, people would be asking for £6 for a cup of coffee. Now, people wouldn't be able to afford to pay that. And so we're stuck in this kind of position where we can't put our prices up anymore, but our costs have continued to rise. And in April, minimum wage increases again will increase the costs of every employee at my business by about £1,500 a year. Now, I'm all in favour of my team getting paid more. In fact, I'd love to be able to pay them more, but in a sustainable way. The impact on our business basically means that we are going to be loss-making this year, and we don't have big financial backers. It's my business. I set it up with kind of a very small amount of savings in a very modest shop down in the old town of Southampton. Like, I don't come from a wealthy family. In fact, I was a free school meals kid for a while when I was a kid, as we worked through those kind of things. So we are not backed by big finance, and therefore we don't have any runway to be able to sustain losses. We've got to every month be financially sustainable, and the cost pressures that we're experiencing, as Anna spoke about yesterday, now have hit a point where if things don't change, we'll have to start closing our coffee shops.
And that sounds like it's going to be the same, as you pointed out at the meeting, tears in the room. How many other businesses in Southampton are at that point? I mean, are they almost, we're not talking about the whole of our hospitality going out of business, but are we talking about 20%, 50%, 75%? I
don't know. I mean, hospitality operators are a resilient bunch. And I think one of the things we also end up doing is just taking on more workload ourselves. And obviously we don't pay ourselves for that. So there's a piece around how much more can you do yourself, but there are significant cracks now appearing. And I think there's a point where we're probably at the point where it's no longer rational for lots of us to continue doing it, because actually we could probably go and earn a wage somewhere else that pays us far better than running our own businesses. But there'll come a point where we actually can't keep doors open because we can't pay people at the end of the month. And nobody wants to be in that situation. And that's ultimately the reality of where we're close to. In terms of percentages, I would say a majority of hospitality operators in this city now are not operating in a sustainable financial way long term. Margins on hospitality at the best of times tend to be in the region of like 5 or 10% profit margin. That's one of the lowest profit margins kind of in any industry in the UK. It's well known, there's a high turnover of restaurants and hospitality venues anyway. Lots of them are passion projects. But the mix, and I'd say it is a bit of a toxic mix of cost prices, have essentially slashed that margin. So if you get it all right, you might make a 1 or 2% margin. And all that means is one or two things need to go wrong and you're loss making. All it takes is for one of our coffee machines, our coffee machines are £9,000 each. One of those goes down at the moment, we will struggle to repair it or replace it. And that's true across the industry. So we're just in a very, very vulnerable place. And if we want vibrant high streets, if we want community spaces that have got coffee shops, pubs that aren't just ticking over, or if we don't just want Wetherspoons and Costa Coffee on our high streets, we want independent operators such as Anna at Stacks yesterday and other people that I'm sure you'll speak to, who bring some personality, some local spirit, some local knowledge to the high street. Things are going to have to change somewhere. And our customers are still coming to see us. Our revenue is not down. I don't think we'll be making loads more money because our customers also don't have a load of money in their pockets. There's a cost of living crisis out there, more widely. So our ask on this one in particular is for some relief on the taxes levied on our industry. And as a comparison, because I think it's always good to try and see, why do other places, maybe other countries, do things differently and get things right. So the total tax take on hospitality in the UK is about 30% of revenue. In Ireland, it's closer to 20% of revenue. So they have a 10% effective tax advantage in Ireland on hospitality than we do here. Same in Spain, same in Italy, same in Portugal, even the same in France, which is a high tax country. Their total tax take is closer to 25%. What that means is they can be viable with lower prices. They can be viable employing more people because they can pay more in wages. And you can feel it. If you walk around the streets of Spain or Portugal or Dublin and Ireland, their hospitality sectors are buzzing and they create vibrant spaces where people want to belong. The streets feel safer. There's a stronger sense of community cohesion. And that's what we're at risk of losing in the UK.
So this campaign, Go Southampton, have kicked off, is actually a ramping up of your campaigning that began last year, I think. So can you just tell the listener how you've been approaching this?
I contacted our local MP, Darren Paffy, in Southampton Itchen 18 months ago, actually after the first budget, because I thought that there was a disconnection between the words that had been used around support for high streets and hospitality and actually some of the numbers that I was seeing coming through and the impact it was going to have on our business. And Darren has been amazingly supportive, both in terms of listening to the challenges and going through the numbers, but also bringing kind of my voice and therefore the hospitality voice for Southampton's to Westminster. I got to meet Rachel Reeves just before the budget last year. And I got a few minutes FaceTime with her where I spoke to and shared the challenges that were affecting my business. And I left her with a letter detailing what that looked like. And the following budget, which was a few weeks later, again, she made good sounding commitments to our industry. But the reality, the facts underneath that didn't match the sentiment that I've been hearing. And I think that there's maybe just a little bit of a lack of understanding of the impact that these changes to the tax shape on our industry are making for real business operators in the real world. And so I contacted Satvir, who is our other Southampton City MP, at the beginning of the year, and she's also been very open-minded to having these conversations. So I have widened, I guess, the number of people involved in this, thinking that I can't be a one-man band forever. And as I say, we convened the first Southampton hospitality meet a couple of weeks ago. I think we had 20-odd people in the room, half of whom were owner-operators of independent hospitality venues. You heard from one of them, Anna, yesterday from Stacks. And the story was consistent right across the board. Like, it wasn't, in some ways I felt a little bit more validated as well, because it's not a Mettricks thing. It's not a Stacks thing. It's not a Mama's Kitchens thing. It's a challenge that we're all facing. So I think we've got local political support, which is great. I think there's a recognition of the importance of hospitality at a local level. I think there's just a little bit of a more national recognition. And like I say, what we're not asking is for subsidy. We're just asking to keep a little bit more of the money that we already take. So it's really some relief from that taxation. I guess the other flip side of this campaign that we're looking to set up, because one of them is, how do we influence national tax policy? That's quite challenging. The other one is we're pushing now quite hard for the city of Southampton to have a hospitality strategy. So a lot of cities in the UK now have a really clear vision for the type of hospitality venues, spaces that they want to attract to the city. And we don't. So Southampton City Council, Go Southampton, the city organisations don't have a written or a coordinated strategy for how hospitality could help to shape a more vibrant city centre, waterfront, Woolston, Portswood. And actually I operate in those spaces with Mettricks already. So we're pushing quite hard to try and get some coordinated thinking around the role of hospitality, whether that's pop-ups, it could be box parks, it could be coffee vans or otherwise in the city parks. It could be street food. It could be, how do we pull some of the amazing, talented chefs in this city away from their home kitchens and potentially showcase them in a space that might allow them to think about opening their own business down the line, or deciding actually it's not for me and I don't want to do it. And I don't think Southampton in a strategic way has really thought about how as a city we can best foster that kind of hospitality, entrepreneurial spirit in other people. And so I'm now also trying to get involved in making that happen too. So looking at it from a national level, but also looking at how we can have a different approach locally. And
I heard someone about a month ago, a chap called Russell suggesting to me that the nighttime Southampton is a bit dull compared to places like Portsmouth, for example, or Bournemouth, or anywhere.
Yep.
It's like Manchester. You go to Manchester, wow, it's great, it's fun. Liverpool, great, it's fun. Southampton,
And I don't think that those places are successful accidentally. And Southampton isn't as fun as those places because we don't have both great operators and people who want to do good things. I think one of the big challenges about Southampton, and this kind of, I think, has been one of my long-term frustrations with it as a Southampton boy, as a Etonian. I grew up here, I went to school here. I've lived back in the city centre now for nearly 20 years. We're very spread out as a city. So in terms of having a concentration of anything from a hospitality point of view anywhere, we've never had it. When I was a kid, when I was just legal enough to be able to go out and have some drinks, I can remember we would start at Town Quay and we'd end up then in a bar next to the bar gate, and then we'd end up in Bedford Place. And kind of our nights out were always very spread out through the city. And I think as planning has continued to influence the shape of the city, it's been done in a bit of an ad hoc way. So Guildhall Square, there was a few more bars and restaurants that opened there. And then the following year, Watermark West Quay opened with more bars and restaurants there. And then the Ocean Village redevelopment happened and there's bars and restaurants there. And then Woolston Waterside happened and there were supposed to be bars and restaurants there. And none of them are fully occupied. There's been a high turnover of operators. There hasn't been space actually a lot of the time for independent operators. Like, I had to work incredibly hard to get Mettricks into the spaces, particularly within the city centre that we had, because the developers and the landlords were far more interested in having national chains that had strong covenants and financial backing. And so the city, I don't think, provides a good startup space for hospitality venues. It then doesn't provide or think about where they might grow into. And the cluster of high quality venues in one space. You want to be able to tumble out of a restaurant and go and have a drink afterwards somewhere. The Mayflower Theatre, you want to be able to go and have a drink first, go to the theatre, then maybe have food afterwards, and then maybe have another drink afterwards. And there's a few restaurants on Commercial Road, but it's right, the pavements are narrow and it's on a really busy road, and everybody actually, they don't linger and hang about after going to the Mayflower. They run back to their car. Now
they do. There's a big sprint basically back to the car.
You see them sprinting back to the car. Whereas a world-class theatre like the Mayflower in any other city would be part of a kind of an urban space, a highly thought-through public realm that would encourage people to spend more time and spend more money and support the local economy. And of course, a lot of those people who are coming to visit the Mayflower are coming from outside the city. So there's an opportunity for the wealthy southeast to financially support jobs in Southampton. And, we really need them. The cruise ship industry is another great example. 2.5 million cruise passengers a year come through the city. Only a few 100,000 of those really touch the city from a spend point of view. There's a great opportunity there for us to provide a better hospitality-driven city centre experience. And we've got the medieval Old Town walls and some real assets in there that could tell a great story as well. And as a city, we've talked a lot about long-term, very important projects and Renaissance boards. And, I've been around for, as I say, 20 years now. And like every 4 or 5 years, there's another one of these very grand visioning documents that comes out. It's almost like there's a leather-bound book down and then it gets put in the basement of the Civic Centre and nothing really gets actioned. And I think the vision isn't the problem. I think it's how we start putting that practically into effect. And I think hospitality is at the very heart of it, like good quality, livable spaces. On the ground floor, you've got your favourite coffee shop, you've got your favourite fish and chip shop, you've got your favourite craft beer bar, you've got whatever it is that and it's not just one of them, you've got a real opportunity to explore various different types. And so that's the second part of the campaign. I guess there's and this, by the way, this came out of conversations with other people in the city. So this hasn't been some, isolated kind of. It's evolved over time as we've spoken about actually what the opportunities for Southampton are as well. And I still think this city has got so much potential, way more potential than Portsmouth. Really frustrating and I agree, in places Portsmouth is more vibrant. It's got that balance right. It's got Southsea. It's got a real strong cluster of high quality independents, nationals, retail, hospitality, late night, daytime, all in one very walkable space. And we don't quite have that. Although Bedford Place, Carlton Place, that started to come together with the pedestrianisation of Carlton Place, which Go Southampton supported in the first instance. And, we've got the waterfront down at Ocean Village, which is kind of never quite taken off. But there's opportunities down there to link it back into the city too. So, yeah, I remain optimistic if frustrated. And, yeah.
Well, I love your enthusiasm for the city. I think you're the most enthusiastic person I've met for Southampton. You really
and I haven't even had a coffee yet.
Yeah, you haven't had a coffee. This is you totally naked. Not yet supercharged. But it's been fantastic listening to you, and I think congratulations, much kudos for this campaign, but also for bringing people together. And I think that's a key part of Southampton. A lot of individuals have good ideas, but you once bringing people together, you see the need, but also others feel supported, and it becomes a movement.
Yep.
And you never know what's going to happen.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Spencer Bowman, MD and founder of Mettricks Ascapart, thank you so much for coming in, and we wish you the best of luck for this campaign.
Voice FM.